Have you ever had something just not go to plan? Your coach puts the game in your hands and you miss the shot at the buzzer? The girl you wanted to ask to prom was into someone else? Sometimes things just do not go to plan. Such is life. NBA franchises are no different. Today's video is the sequel to last week's episode. This time we'll be detailing the 5 most standout super teams since 2000 that failed to live up to expectations. If you haven't seen it already, I do encourage you all to take a few moments and watch my first video, the 5 best super teams of the 21st century. I understand there's some debate about what a super team even is, and in that video we dive deeper into defining a super team for you guys. Just one tweak I'm making for this video in order to include some teams that otherwise would not have qualified given last week's constraints. To be considered a super team, an all-star supporting cast will be acceptable. All NBA accolades will not be necessary, though of course teams with multiple All-NBA players will be more scrutinized, their failures will carry more weight, and therefore will likely appear higher on the list as a result. Without further ado, let me present to you the 5 biggest failed super teams of the 21st century. The 2004-2005 Indiana Pacers were the league's best team, and everybody knew it. Yes, they lost in the previous year's Eastern Conference Finals to the eventual champion Detroit Pistons, but they'd won 61 games, were the number 1 seed in the East, and looked to build on a special season. They had 2 All-Stars in Jermaine O'Neal and Ron Artest, not to mention the legendary Reggie Miller, still one of the best shooters in the game at age 39. The franchise made a trade before the year to land exciting young weapon Steven Jackson, who was coming off a career-best year with the Atlanta Hawks. This formed a very scary core, and they looked to seek revenge for last year's defeat, though not in the way most expected. Early in the season, they found themselves in a rematch versus the Pistons. In the closing minute of the game, up 15 points, Ron Artest delivered a hard foul on Ben Wallace as he went up for a layup. Wallace shoved Artest in the face with both hands in retaliation, and despite an orchestra of boos and slurs directed at Artest by the hometown Detroit crowd, it appeared it would not escalate. But as you may know, when Artest was struck by a flying beverage, chaos ensued. The brawl between players and fans is probably the most infamous event in NBA history, but from a purely basketball lens, it was the downfall of the Indiana Pacers. O'Neal and Jackson faced long suspensions, and Artest was suspended for the entirety of the season. In what many believed might be a championship in Reggie Miller's final season, the Pacers limped their way to 44 wins and were ironically beaten in the second round of the playoffs by none other than the Detroit Pistons. Everything was going right for the Dallas Mavericks as they finished up the regular season and readied themselves for the 2007 playoffs, though maybe they weren't ready enough. The 2006-2007 Mavs come in at the number 4 spot, and for good reason. Franchise cornerstone and international sensation Dirk Nowitzki was in the prime of his career, winning NBA MVP and earning his 6th straight All-Star appearance. Josh Howard's game seemed to expand each season since being drafted in the first round in 2003, truly blossoming as Nowitzki's right-hand man, as he too was named an All-Star in 2007. This Dallas team was stacked, and I mean stacked. Let's rewind just a bit. It all started in the 2004 offseason when they drastically reformed their roster by letting go of point guard Steve Nash and allowing him to sign with the team that drafted him, the Phoenix Suns. Nash was vocal about his desire to remain in Dallas, but owner Mark Cuban was hesitant to hand the 30-year-old Nash a long-term contract. I think it turned out to be alright for the guy, winning back-to-back MVPs in his first 2 years back in Phoenix, and even defeating the Mavs in the Western Conference semifinals in 2005. Despite losing the future MVP of the league, a series of 2004 offseason acquisitions left Dallas in a spot to contend for the NBA title, the first of which occurred on draft night, which saw the Mavs send 6th Man of the Year Anton Jameson for a package that included recent All-Star Jerry Stackhouse and the number 5 overall pick, Devin Harris. Stackhouse replaced Jameson as 6th man, and Harris was the point guard of the future. They were also able to complete a sign-and-trade that included starting center Eric Dampier and shipped away Antoine Walker for one of the league's most dependable shooters and scorers, Jason Terry. After narrowly losing in the NBA Finals to the Miami Heat in 2006, they boasted the league's best starting five and were heavy favorites to win the 2007 title. After a dreamlike regular season that saw them win an incredible 67 games, the Mavericks collapsed against the 8-seeded Golden State Warriors, shockingly losing the series in 6 games. No, not those Golden State Warriors. These Golden State Warriors. Stackhouse didn't get any younger. Howard's career fell apart after the following season, and they sent away Devin Harris for an aging Jason Kidd. Nowitzki, Kidd, and Terry won a championship with Dallas in 2011, but that doesn't change the truth of their once promising 2007 playoffs. At number 3, we have the 2017-18 Oklahoma City Thunder. The Golden State Warriors had just won their first championship with Kevin Durant at the helm, and the NBA world was hoping that something big would happen in the 2017 offseason to challenge the reigning champs in the following year. It seemed like that something might have just happened when superstar Paul George was surprisingly traded from the Indiana Pacers to OKC in July 2017 for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. The Thunder still had the reigning MVP in Russell Westbrook and were clearly all in, sacrificing young all-star talent for a guy who not only was going to be a free agent the following summer, but who also had already stated his desire to play in Los Angeles for his hometown Lakers. One of the biggest storylines of the summer was the impending trade of all-time great scorer and 4-time Olympian Carmelo Anthony. Because of his no-trade agreement in his contract, he told then Knicks president Phil Jackson that he would only accept trades to the Houston Rockets, Cleveland Cavaliers, or the Oklahoma City Thunder. A trade was finally agreed upon in late September between the Thunder and the New York Knicks, and the Thunder had themselves a Western Conference powerhouse primed to challenge the Golden State dynasty.
The Oklahoma City Thunder are officially the number 2 team in the Western Conference.
Unfortunately, the trio struggled to mesh on the court, and all-defensive team wing Andre Roberson ruptured his left patellar tendon in mid-season, further exposing the team's defensive shortcomings and lack of depth. They lost in the first round to a Utah Jazz team led by rookie Donovan Mitchell, concluding a hugely disappointing year. After the worst season of his career, in which he averaged career lows in points and field goal percentage, Carmelo Anthony was traded in the offseason. The Thunder were once again optimistic entering the 2018-19 season, though they lost in the first round, this time to the Portland Trail Blazers. Consequently, Westbrook and George were sent to the Rockets and Clippers respectively, launching a full-blown rebuild. Last week, I hinted that the Nets might be on this list. Here they are now, the number 2 biggest failed super team of the 21st century. The Brooklyn Nets had just finished up their first season in New York, and owner Mikhail Prokhorov was ready to make waves. The Nets had 3 All-Stars, Joe Johnson, Darren Williams, and leading scorer Brook Lopez, but apparently Prokhorov wasn't satisfied. On the day of the NBA draft in late June of 2013, the Nets and Boston Celtics agreed to a mega deal sending Kevin Durant, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry to Brooklyn for a collection of young assets and first-round picks. The Russian owner also signed Russian legend Andrei Kirilenko to a 2-year deal, putting the finishing touches on a massive summer for the new-look Nets. Despite their aging core, they started 5 All-Stars to begin the regular season, and many believed they would serve as a major threat to Miami's Big Three. Things quickly unraveled, however, as Lopez was ruled out for the entire season to undergo foot surgery, and Terry was traded mid-season to the Sacramento Kings. Each of the other core members dealt with nagging injuries and had some of the worst statistical years of their career. The team stumbled down the stretch to 44 wins and the Eastern Conference's 6th seed. They squeaked by the Toronto Raptors in round 1 of the 2014 playoffs, but were completely exposed by LeBron James and the Heat in the following round. The team was disassembled as quickly as it came together, as the team rid themselves of Williams, KG, Pierce, and Kirilenko within 1 season. They suffered through the next 3 to 4 seasons as they did not own any significant draft picks due to the deal with Boston in 2013. Last, and certainly least, is the 2012-2013 Los Angeles Lakers. There is no other team in the history of the game who boasted such high expectations and a talented roster and failed this miserably. The Lakers filled their dire need at point guard by negotiating a sign-and-trade that landed them a 2-time MVP, the league's passing and shooting king, Steve Nash. But they weren't done. A month later, in what was certainly one of the most hyped trades the NBA has ever seen, the Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Lakers, and Orlando Magic agreed upon a massive 3-team deal that sent the best center of this generation, Dwight Howard, to Los Angeles, uniting him with Nash, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, and the newly renamed Meta World Peace. The team appeared to have no weaknesses. They were immediately favorites to win the Western Conference, making basketball enthusiasts drool over the thought of a Kobe versus LeBron championship series. But Kobe needed excellence around him. He demanded it. He has never been known to be an easy teammate, and he gave slack to no one, not even the league's most dominant scorer, rebounder, and shot blocker. Those who were hoping to have Kobe-Shaq flashbacks were quickly disappointed, as Kobe never seemed to accept Dwight as that guy, even on the court. Dwight complained about Kobe shooting too much, challenging him to, quote, do more than just score. When Dwight was briefly sidelined due to shoulder issues, Kobe said that Dwight worries too much and should be playing through the injury. Nash suffered from a variety of injuries throughout the season, calling it the most frustrating year of his career. The Lakers fought and gritted their way into the playoffs after being below 500 for much of the year, but got swept in the first round by the San Antonio Spurs. Dwight left for Houston after just one season, and Nash was never able to overcome the injuries and nerve problems that overshadowed his career in Los Angeles. Despite lofty scoring numbers from an aging Kobe Bryant, the Lakers were one of the league's worst teams for the next few years.